If you woke up one winter morning and found tiny footprints stitched across your frosty garden, would you follow them? Would you tiptoe back inside, or would you lean closer to see who had visited in the night? Tonight's story is about Rosco the cottontail bunny discovering mysterious footprints in the frost, and what happens when he decides to follow them. Stay with us and we'll find out who left them, and why winter sometimes asks us to look a little more closely. On a pale winter morning, when the frost lay silver and quiet over the garden behind the cottage, Rosco the cottontail bunny opened the back door and stopped suddenly. Across the white grass, neat as stitches in cloth, ran a line of tiny footprints. "We've had a visitor," he said to himself. "I wonder who it could possibly be." The air was sharp enough to nip at whiskers. Chimney smoke from Mr. Bramblewick's cottage down the lane drifted upward in a thin blue ribbon. The cabbages and leeks in the vegetable patch wore brittle collars of ice, and every blade of grass glittered as though dipped in sugar. Berry came to stand beside Rosco, wrapping his woolen scarf twice around his neck. Millie Moonbeam skipped up, curious to see what the bunnies were looking at. Caratina tucked her paws into the pockets of her apron and peered out. The footprints began at the hedge, crossed the path, and led straight toward the compost heap at the far end of the garden. "They're not ours," Millie Moonbeam whispered, as if the frost itself were listening. "They have the shape of a little maple leaf." Rosco stepped carefully onto the first stone of the path. The frost gave a soft crunch beneath his paw. "Let's follow them," he said, "but we mustn't disturb them." They walked out in a small line, their breath puffing in little clouds. The morning felt hushed and newly made. A robin watched from the fence post, feathers fluffed so he looked as plump and round as a currant bun. Somewhere past the hedge, a cartwheel clattered over the cobbles in the lane and trundled on. The footprints were small and rounded, set close together. Here and there a faint line trailed between them, as though something soft had brushed the surface. Berry knelt near the compost heap. The frost there looked thinner. A mound of earth was crumbly and dark, not white and stiff like the rest. He leaned closer. From beneath the loosened soil came a tiny sound. Scritch, scratch, then silence. Scritch, scratch. The bunnies stood motionless, apart from the odd quiver of whisker and twitch of nose. The robin cocked its head, listening for the soft sound from under the earth. And then, quite suddenly, the soil moved. Up popped a small velvety nose dusted in earth. 2 tiny round spectacles followed, then a neat grey head, and finally a pair of broad paws that brushed themselves carefully against one another. "Oh," said the creature, blinking in the bright light. "Good morning. I do hope I haven't disturbed anything important." Rosco found his voice first. "Good morning," he replied politely. "We were just admiring your footprints." The little gentleman climbed fully out of the earth and gave a small bow. "Mr. Moverly Mole," he said, "at your service. Winter requires certain adjustments, you see." Millie Moonbeam tilted her head. "Are the footprints part of the adjustment?" "Precisely," said Mr. Moverly Mole, looking kindly around at the bunnies. He stepped lightly onto the frosted grass, examining it with care. When the frost settles and turns hard and brittle, my upper tunnels grow terribly sharp and chilly, and the air inside becomes will-o'-the-wisp crisp, enough to tickle a sneeze. The soil tightens, you see. The earth becomes firm enough for a worm to turn and burrow deeper underground. One mustn't dig blindly when the ground has stiffened, far too difficult. It's better to learn the frost first. Learn the frost? Berry asked. Indeed. Mr. Moverley Mole lifted his nose toward the pale sun. I come above ground on mornings like this to feel how deeply winter has settled. The sun on my nose tells me what the soil is going to do, and the frost shows me where the ground is too hard for comfortable digging. He tapped the earth beside the compost heap with his foot. Here, for example, the soil stays softer. The compost keeps a little warmth tucked inside. Worms prefer it, and so do I. Caratina smiled. So you're not lost? Lost? Mr. Moverley Mole looked mildly astonished. Oh no, my dear. Merely measuring and mapping. He turned around in a small circle, studying the garden as though it were a map spread flat before him. The frost sparkled in every direction. Rosco glanced at the neat line of prints stretching behind him. We wondered who had visited last night. A brief visit only, said Mr. Moverley Mole. One mustn't linger long above ground in winter, but it is a pleasure to get to know one's garden neighbours. Millie Moonbeam took a careful step closer. Your tunnels go all the way under our cabbages and leeks. Under, around, and politely between, Mr. Moverley Mole assured her, and I'm very respectful of root vegetables. Your parsnips and carrots and turnips and swedes are just what I need to know how far I am underground. I take nary a nibble. Just look and admire. Oh, and I must say, they look particularly good. Berry gave a thoughtful nod. The morning sun climbed a little higher. Already the frost along the path had begun to soften at the edges. Tiny beads of water gathered where the crystals had been. Mr. Moverley Mole rubbed his paws together briskly. Yes, the frost is not too deep today. A new passage may be started just here. He indicated the crumbly patch near the compost heap. Deeper down, the soil will be perfect for tunnels and small round rooms where I can rest. Rosco looked toward the cottage, the windows glowing warmly, keeping out the cold. Would you care for a bowl of porridge before you continue your measuring and mapping? He asked. Mr. Moverley Mole hesitated only long enough to remove his spectacles and polish them. Well, he said, a small bowl of porridge might improve my calculations. Inside the cottage, the air was sweet with oats and stewed apples. Steam rose from a sturdy pot on the stove. The bunnies gathered round the wooden table, while Mr. Moverley Mole perched neatly on the edge of a chair, his paws wrapped round a warm bowl. He sighed, content. I need to listen to the ground carefully in winter. Summer's for digging in carefree straight lines. In winter, my tunnels, they take me more time. But it is pleasant to measure and map with porridge-warm paws. Millie Moonbeam smiled into her bowl. Outside the window, the frost continued its quiet retreat. The silver sheen faded from the grass, leaving it green once more. The line of footprints softened, edges blurred. One by one they sank back into the earth. Berry noticed first. "Your tracks are disappearing." "As they should," Mr. Moverley Mole replied. "Winter leaves signs, but only for a little while. That's quite enough." When the bowls were empty and thanks properly exchanged, Mr. Moverley Mole buttoned his small waistcoat and stepped once more into the garden. The frost had nearly gone. Only the shaded corners by the apple tree still glittered faintly. He stood for a moment, feeling the air. "Yes," he said, "the frost has told me what I needed to know." With that, he returned to the softened patch beside the compost heap. The soil gave way easily beneath his paws. In a moment, only the gentle rise of earth showed where he had gone. The garden was still again. Rosco brushed crumbs from the table and looked out across the damp grass. It was nice meeting Mr. Moverley Mole and learning his ways. "Some visitors don't stay long, but they still leave things for us to notice," Millie Moonbeam added. "And to measure and map," Berry said wisely. Caratina straightened her apron. "And perhaps to share porridge." The day went on in its unhurried way. By afternoon, the frost was only a memory. By evening, the sunset sky made the clouds glow pink and orange and gleam as they drifted by. That night, as the bunnies settled into their snug beds, patchwork quilts tucked under chinnigans, the garden lay calm beneath a blanket of quiet stars. Below the cabbages and under the swedes, Mr. Moverley Mole dug a new winter tunnel, deeper and warmer than before. Above, in the cottage, the small bunnies slept soundly, knowing their winter visitor was exactly where he was meant to be. All was snug. All was well. Night-night.